Thanks, John. And now we're going to kick it over to our hockey analysts. Today we have Rob Siammer, Mark Spillane, and I, Flane. Guys, how you doing today?
Great.
Just great, huh? It's always great. Can't complain.
Doing all right.
There we go. So we're going to start it off with a quick recap of what happened this weekend in the ECAC playoffs. The Bobcats lost in the semifinals again, like they did last year, to Brown, to the Colgate Raiders by a score of 3-2. The loss came in double overtime, and they allowed that game-tying goal with under a minute left in the third period. So we'll start it off with you, Rob. What are your recap after this weekend?
Well, the Raiders pulled the goal. They had 6-on-5. The way it looked like from the highlights that I saw, the Bobcats really did not do well defensively. They were more or less like trying to chase the puck around instead of staying home defensively, just forming that box +1 and protecting Michael Gartig. And that's what happened. And the Raiders got that goal to tie the game up. Bobcats are really, I want to say, I guess, aggressive when they play defense. That was a time where they needed to sort of stay still and just get in the passing and shooting lanes, and they didn't do that.
Rob?
It's been the same old story with them throughout the year with a lot of the young defensemen. The way they lose games is the way they lost that game to Colgate, where there's a loose puck in front right when it needs to be cleared, and it's not, and the sticks are not lifted, and one of the forwards for the other teams gets the stick on the puck and pushes it past Gartig. It's the same old thing, and we say week after week, they need to correct this, They haven't done it yet. There's still time, but it's the same old story.
Yeah, I want to go back to the first goal that the Bobcats let in when there was miscommunication behind the goal between Gartig and Derek Smith. Another thing, where a miscommunication happens and the other team capitalizes on it, and that's something that we've seen a ton throughout the year. Whenever the Bobcats make a mistake, they usually aren't bailed out, and that happened again on Friday night. And I think that goal, while it brought it from 2-1, I think that really set the tone for the rest of the game. When you have something like that happen, you just you hang your heads because you guys messed up. And I think that just carried on. But I don't want to take too much away from them. They played a strong defensive game overall. But, like Rob pointed out, last minute. And, it seems that happens every once in a while to this team as well.
I mean, It definitely was a better game than last year against Brown. You could tell this was a different team than last year in the ECAC playoffs.
Yeah, you mentioned how they played a strong defensive game, but it'd be interesting to see how they don't key in on, especially the key players. Tyson Spink was one of the key players, if not the best player for Colgate, besides Charlie Finn in goal. And he scored the game winner with, I think, around 2 seconds in the slot with the puck on his stick. Even though it was off a rebound, they still shouldn't let someone like that caliber get that much open space. And like you said, Mark, they can't pick up sticks, and they can't really do that in front of the crease where it really matters, and that's when it came, especially with that tying goal. So coming from a game like this, is there any second guesses you have from this team going into the NCAA tournament?
They're just so inexperienced. Last year, they were not. You really weren't worried about this team making mistakes. And when they did make mistakes, they bounced back very, very well. This year, they, however, have not done that. What they've done is they'll make a mistake, and then, like Artie said, they hang their head. And then they make more mistakes, and it just compounds itself. It just becomes a snowball, and it just rolls downhill, and things get worse. So the fact that they're that inexperienced has to cause some concern, and the fact that they only went 1 for 6 on the power play in that game also has to cause some concern as well, because that means that they got a lot of opportunities but didn't take advantage of them, and that simply cannot happen in the NCAA tournament.
I agree with you. You look at the body language of Derek Smith after that first goal, you can just tell the Bobcats slowly after that we're going to unravel a little bit. And after seeing his body language, I'm just like, oh no, what's to come of this team now? How's Colgate going to react to this?
I think it's hard to not question the team at this point going into the NCAA tournament just because they didn't play well. But let's think about last year as well. I know that this is a less experienced team, but they got ran out of Atlantic City against Brown and then bounced back. Now, Canisius controlled late in the game, but then you have a run, and then the next night against Union, they completely blew the door off the wall. So I think that there is some concern, but I think that they'll come out on Friday and play very well. So I'm not on a level of 1 to 10. I'm not up in the 7s. I'm more down 4 area with a level of concern, because I still believe this team is a great team, and I think that they can get it done when it counts. But when you have these big games that they unravel at the last couple minutes, then that obviously causes some concern for me.
Now, each of you has harped on inexperience and kind of unraveling at the last coming seconds. Who's the player on this team that people need to look up to when it comes to those dying seconds, or when the team gets kind of low in morale, like you said, Derek Smith? Who's the player that needs to step up and voice his concern and say, hey guys, don't worry about it, we'll get him next time?
somebody that we've been talking about for a while now, and it's Dan Federico. He just got back and was able to play in that game, except on that tying goal in the Colgate game, who was right there and didn't clear the puck? It was Dan Federico. Now, if he's going to make those kinds of mistakes, they're going to be in trouble because he's the guy they have to look to, along with Zach Tolkien as the two upperclassmen, the only two upperclassmen in the defensive core. And the fact that he came back and played well in the game, but then in one crucial moment with a minute left didn't do what you would expect him to, has to be kind of scary.
I don't think so much defense. I think offense. Just because I think the possession of the puck after a mistake on defense is key to kind of get the defense minds off of it. It's hard to get as a defender let it go, and you don't want to, but you have to. And I think one way to let that happen is, the offense to get some puck possession. So I'd say one of the Jones twins or Corey Hibbler. These are all guys that have been here this is all their fourth year. They've been through the ups and downs. I think they just need to say, defense, we're going to give you a break. We're going to take over. We'll get a puck in the net, and everything's going to be okay.
I definitely agree with you about the Corey Hibbler choice or even Jordan Samuels-Thomas. He's a big voice on this team. We've seen just his presence has a great effect on this team when he scores. His team is like 12-0-1 with him. He's just got that presence in the locker room as well. And on the ice, I think he's the leader, as well as their captain, Corey Hibbler.
I think it's easily Jordan Samuels-Thomas. This is the player that's come up huge with them. You need to go back to 2 weekends ago against Yale. In that second game, it was tied up. They're like, okay, well, this might go to a third game, and you never know what's going to happen. In a third game, Jordan Samuels-Thomas comes up at clutch and scores that game-winning goal for them. And when he was out, the Bobcats didn't look completely like themselves. So certainly, if there is that one player, like I said, it could start with Jordan Samuels-Thomas because he's easily one of the most vocal players on the team. After this weekend, how can this at all be turned into a learning experience? There's a lot of parallels between this weekend and last year's semifinals. Although Colgate was a higher seed than Quinnipiac, it wasn't a Brown, they still got ousted in the semifinals when they had very high hopes coming into the ECAC playoffs.
Learning experience for me would be that every team's going to give you your best effort, and you have to come in, play 60 minutes of hockey, or you're going to lose. And in this case, it took 81 minutes for a team to prevail, but I think that this Bobcats team sometimes takes a couple minutes off, and they pay for it every single time. You go back to Yale, the first game of this season that they played, you take 3 minutes off, and all of a sudden, it's a 3-3 game after it was 3-0.
Even the home game at St. Lawrence, too, they say they took that little
Absolutely.
time off.
And Princeton as well. I mean, there's countless
took a lot of time off.
Yeah.
There's countless times that you can bring that up. So I think that that's something that they really need to key on this week, because in the NCAA tournament, you're playing against the best 16 teams in the country. Mm-hmm. There's going to be times where you want to get maybe want to take a break, but you cannot, because the other team will capitalize, and then you're going to be in the hole. And I think that's something that they keyed on other teams last year, and I think teams are keen on them this year with that. And that goes back to the inexperience.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're playing Providence in the first round. This gives you a very different Providence team than they saw back in November. So they need to realize this is a team that lost in the Hockey East playoffs. So they're looking for some revenge here now on the national stage. Bobcats need to play defense very well, protect Michael Garza. They can't rely on him to make every save. He's not Eric Hartzell. Defense really is back to clearing the puck out against Colgate. They failed to do. And then you also just have the fact that they need to take advantage that John Gillies, as good of a goaltender as he is, every once in a while he's going to give up a loud rebound in this case, and they just take advantage of that and crash the net.
It's strange with this team all year long. We've been talking about they need to pay a little more attention to the details. And I think that's the same goes for this upcoming weekend. And I think Artie really hit the nail on the head when he was talking about how they take those little times where they take some time off and they have those mental lapses. That didn't happen last year. It's happened a lot this year over and over and over again. They've been incredibly inconsistent since that 13-game unbeaten streak back in the beginning of the year. This team has been like a roller coaster since then. Some weekends they look like the best team in the country. Other weekends, honestly, they look terrible. So it's kind of hard to tell what you're going to get out of them, but if they focus on the details, which I'm sure is what they're harping on in practice all week long, they should be able to at least be competitive this weekend, if not advance through.
So moving away from last weekend, we're going to go to this weekend where, like you said, Rob, they are going to face Providence in the first-round matchup in the East Regional. Providence is a team who came out pretty hot at the beginning of the season. When they came in to play the Bobcats, they were ranked third in the USCHO national poll. But ever since the turn of the new year, they're 8-7-3. The two big players are John Gillies, a goaltender, and Ross Mowerman, too, who was their Hobie Baker nominee as well. What do you guys see coming from in this matchup? Artie, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that you hit it on the head when you said this team's been a different team since the turn of the year. John Gillies went across seas for the World Junior Championships, and things have gone south for Providence ever since. His save percentage shot down, his goals against average shot up, things that you don't want. And so I think because of that, this team's a different team now. John Gillies has been playing well, and that's how they advanced in the Hockey East tournament. But I think, you go back to when the Bobcats played them in November. Quinnipiac dominated that game. I mean, in every category except goals scored. And so I think I look for the defense to dominate Providence as well. I also really want to see the offense get into the crease. I think that this Quinnipiac team sometimes takes too many shots from outside the crease, hoping that they're just going to get snip a couple through. That's not going to happen with Gillies. He doesn't let those in. You have to crash the net. You have to get the dirty goals. This team doesn't always like to get the dirty goals. They like to get the pretty ones that are going to be on SportsCenter. They need dirty goals against Gillies because you'll take anything that he will give.
That was all shown in that game that you were mentioned. I think the shot totals were somewhere around low 40s for Quinnipiac,
48
low
to
20s.
22.
So there you go. So that's exactly what you're talking about, is doubling them and a little bit more in shots, but still having the same amount of goals scored. Not what you want, but I think this might be just what the doctor ordered for the Bobcats, because it's a team doing the exact same thing that they're doing, which is not spiraling out of control, but not going uphill either, just kind of stuck on a plateau right now. And if Quinnipiac can use that to their advantage, because they are a better team than the Friars. They absolutely are. When they're on, they're much better than them. But they haven't been on as of late. If they can use that to their advantage to get themselves back on track, it might be something to propel them.
I'm going to jump in, Rob, here. You said already that this team does love to shoot the puck, and I think coming into this weekend playing on bigger ice surface in Lake Placid, they were really looking forward to probably playing on the bigger ice, just like any other hockey player was, and they should be able to shoot the puck at will and honestly score at will with a team that loves these flashy goals. We talked about learning experiences in that last segment. That could be a huge learning experience for them because they had all the time and space to go for those flashy goals, to shoot from the outside, and they just didn't get it done. So I think from there they can move on.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bobcats, the last game against Providence, they're tying goal by Providence. The Bobcats were 5-on-3, down on 5-on-3, man advantage. Goals, a one-timer shot from the point. Bobcats need to stay out of the box. I mean, we've seen that. They've been a little more disciplined over the last few weeks, but at the same time, that Yale series, they did give up 3 out of 6, 3 power play goals on 6 opportunities against Yale. So they need to remain disciplined. We've seen Connor Clifton in the box a lot this season. I think that's still being polite when saying that, but
Bryce Van Brabant spends a lot of time there as well. He's got
the
about 120 minutes in penalties this year.
He leads the country in penalties.
But the one thing I think you can argue with that, though, is that some of the penalties that get called against Van Brabant is that some of them are just because he's too big. But there are others.
Yes,
it's a good point.
He
Yeah,
also took some very, as Coach Pecknell called them, stupid penalties against Yale.
Definitely.
It almost cost Quinnipiac.
So we talked about how even against Colgate, Tyson Spink was able to finish and score the game-winning goal. He had a lot of space. This is now a team with the Providence Friars that has really one star, and that's Ross Merriman. How are the Bobcats going to have to shut him down? We talked about their struggle with keying in on key players. Who are they going to have to match up with Ross?
I think it all comes back to those senior defensemen. I think you have to have at least one of them out on the ice as much as you can with him, and try to get the Corey Hibbler line out there against them. Because Corey Hibbler, remember, came to Quinnipiac as a defenseman. So he came in as a defenseman and is one of the best defensive forwards in the conference and probably in the nation, if you really take a look at everything. And then not to mention he plays with Van Brabant, who is a massive person, constantly causing trouble for guys entering the zone. And Jordan Samuels-Thomas has done a much better job over the past year and a half than he did in his first half year with Quinnipiac at back-checking and doing a good job defensively. So I would say if you get that forward line out there and then make sure that one of those two experienced D-men is out there as well, that's probably your best bet. I don't know if I'd want him out there roaming around against any other forward lines.
But at the same time, if you want to put a Federico or a Tolkien in, who do you match up with those players? Do you put a Derek Smith on there, who's known to stay back more? Or do you go with a streaky Connor Clifton, who can make a big hit and make an impact, but also loves to jump up in the play and could leave a wide open breakaway for someone like a Ross Merriman?
I wouldn't go with Connor Clifton in this scenario just because, I mean, this team's going to capitalize on their opportunities. And, like I said earlier, teams in this tournament are. So when you have a great player like Ross Merriman, you need to have that defensive mindset that Rob was talking about against Colgate in those last couple minutes. And I think that you don't need to completely be defensive. I also think a good way to keep the puck away from Ross Meyerman is the forecheck. But I think that, I think Derek Smith's a good option there if he plays smart, which he's very capable of doing. So I think Ross Meyerman's going to score a point in this game, most likely. But as long as the Bobcats really key on him and keep him at bay, then they're going to have a shot to win this game.
Yeah, I think you got to put like a mature defenseman like Zach Tolkinen on him. I think Tolkinen is a very good man-to-man defenseman when it comes down, the puck comes down to the Bobcat zone. But if you have to pick a forward as well when it comes down to the zone as well, Mark, I think you said as well, Corey Hibbler. He's one of the best defensive offensemen we've seen. I think in Quinnipiac's history and across the nation this year. I think he's very good at staying on the man-to-man as well. He goes down and blocks shots, so he could really be a good player against them.
He's a fantastic shot blocker, and going along with that, and something that you mentioned, the forecheck. When you talk about the way Matt Pekka and the Travis St. Denis line plays, or the way that the Joneses play with Sam Annis, it's usually pushing the puck up the ice and then back out, and then back in and back out. The Hibbler line gets on the ice. What do? They put the puck in the corner, and they cycle it back and forth to each other for a solid 30 seconds before anyone else touches the puck. That's one way to keep the puck away from Ross.
Well, certainly they can do that because they're such a big line. Yeah. Bryce Van Braben, Corey Hibbler, and Jordan Samuels-Thomas, probably 3 of your top 4 hugest players, and that is a huge advantage, especially when you're going against Mauerman or someone of that skill. You can just take the body away from them. That puck's not going to go in by itself. So if you can take the body away from him, not have him any type of opportunities for him to do any type of the moves he can do, it certainly is a big advantage for the Bobcats. So for this game, what do you guys think is the result?
I think Quinnipiac wins. What do you guys think?
I'm going to agree. I think Quinnipiac wins this game. I think this is a statement game for Quinnipiac. Obviously, Union looming in the next round if they can get by Vermont. And so I think that this team will respond. They don't lose 2 games consecutively too often either. That doesn't happen. They showed that they can respond to losses. So I think that plays to their advantage as well in this game. And I just think that, we saw the dominance earlier in the year against Providence. I think they do that, but they just need to finish their opportunities. That's something that they've really struggled with. Jordan Samuels-Thomas needs to get a couple points on the board, whether it's a goal or, just an assist, banging bodies down low in the crease. I think that that's key to the game.
Yeah, I definitely see a Quinnipiac win as well. They did play very well against them back in November. They just didn't finish, like you said, Arthur. It's just a matter of them playing the full 60 minutes and, playing well defensively, obviously protecting Michael Gartig, and then, what that Jordan Samuels-Thomas and Bryce Van Braben do, get the puck in the corner and keep it there, just keep cycling and whatnot, keeping the puck down in the Friar zone.
So, yeah, certainly you'd like to think the Bobcats could come away with a win against this matchup. But would you say Providence is a better team than Colgate? I mean, Colgate doesn't have that much star power, and they have Finn, who was a good goaltender, but a freshman goaltender. So if they can't, the only reservations I have on this game is if they can't match up that well against Colgate, interested to see how it's going to happen and play out against Providence. But like you said, Arthur, they don't lose 2 games in a row that often. Rand Pecknold has these guys in the right mindset, and they do have the locker room with Corey Hibbler and some of the leadership, veteran leadership on that team to get in the right mindset. Just forget about that and just go back to work for this week. We're going to go on a bigger stage here, and I want to hear your guys' Frozen 4 teams. We'll start with you, Arthur.
I'm going to go Minnesota, Wisconsin, Lowell, and Quinnipiac.
I'm kind of on the same train there with you. I'll go with Notre Dame. I haven't been impressed by Minnesota the last few years in the NCAA tournament. They have this tendency to kind of not play that well when they get on the smaller ice.
The women showed that too.
And the women losing to Clarkson in the national championship game, but the men's team has struggled in tournaments in the past couple of years. So I could really see either Notre Dame or St. Cloud getting past them. I like Wisconsin as well, coming out of their side in their regional out in the Midwest. I think UMass Lowell is a lock to come out of their spot. I would have said BC going into the Hockey East tournament.
One-line team.
But then
one-line team.
But you're absolutely right. UMass Lowell looked fantastic. Connor Hellebuck looked amazing.
Yep.
And ever since they lost those 2 games to Quinnipiac back in the beginning of the year,
They've
they
turned
looked
it
like
on.
that top 5 team
That's
that we thought
that's
they
something
were.
UMass Lowell does. They start off very slow. I mean, they were number 1 team. They lost to Sacred Heart, which could easily be one of the worst teams in the country, and they lose to
That
Sacred
could be
Heart.
one of the worst losses in college hockey history.
But it's a thing with UMass Lowell. They start off very slow, and then for some reason they crawl their way up that Hockey East.
And they've done it again.
They've done it again.
That's why we
and
schedule
then-
them the first couple weekends.
And then I really do think that Union will come out of the East Regional. Quinnipiac, we know they can play well. We know they can beat Union. But the way they're playing right now, the way Union is playing right now, They look like they're on a mission, and I think they're out for blood versus the Bobcats. They remember last year, and they want revenge, and they want it badly, and they have so much depth of scoring up front. If they continue to leave loose pucks floating around, that is the Bobcats. If they continue to do that, no chance they beat the Dutchmen.
I've been impressed by Notre Dame this year, game in and game out, but for some reason I can't see them getting past Minnesota in the regional. I think Minnesota can make it. As far as the other one, I have Wisconsin going, and then Boston College, you're right, they are a one-line team, but I think they could step it up against UMass Lowell. There's a chance we could see them escape that game.
It all comes down to Demko. I mean, inexperienced goalie allows 7 goals one night. So it's just a matter for BC. It's a matter of if Demko can play a good game. These are 1-game playoffs, so who knows what's going to happen. Gillies could come out and not play well at all on Friday night. So I think that's really where BC needs to focus in. They're going to score goals. I mean, we know that. But, is Demko going to be okay on defense? We'll see.
Interesting, no Colgate at all from Wisconsin. I mean, Colgate did come out of nowhere. And Charlie Finn on Friday night, he did play a good game against the Bobcats, and they were firing pucks at him early on, and he certainly showed up. That team, like we said, lacks a lot of star power, but he played a very, very good season this year, and he came up big. And you never know, as we saw last year with the Bobcats, very, very hot goaltender at the right time can do a lot to get there. Maybe not to reach and to win, but it does a lot to get there.
Don't count Colgate out.
And something that's interesting
Do not count
is
them out.
they are very similar to Yale last year in the sense that they got hot towards the end, didn't quite get over the hump in the ECAC playoffs, but then got shipped out west, where they're going to play teams that have never seen them before.
Yeah.
They don't have to deal with
Ferris
Quinnipiac
State
and Union on this
has.
side. Ferris State has, but for the most part, those teams out there don't really know a whole lot about Colgate. They don't play them year in and year out over and over again the way Quinnipiac and Union do, and that's what happened with Yale last year. They waltzed right in and played those big-time teams out west, came away with a couple overtime victories, and next thing you know, they're national champions.
Well, that's the thing I have to say about Colgate. They've played Ferris State twice this year, or 3 times. They're 2-1 against them. So I can see Colgate getting to that Saturday game next week, but I don't see them escaping that one.
All right, all good stuff, guys. That'll do it here for this hockey analyst segment. Arthur Lane, Mark Spillane, and Rob Stiomber. I'm Connor Fortier. Take care.